The Iron Serpents had built their criminal empire through fear and brutal efficiency, trafficking humans across 3 continents while hiding behind a small-town facade. But they made one catastrophic mistake. They kidnapped 16-year-old Samantha Riker, never knowing her father was a legendary Navy SEAL. What followed would ignite a war that would remind the criminal underworld why you never come between a warrior and his child. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for tomorrow's special episode. The digital clock blinked 4:30 a.m. when Jack Riker's eyes snapped open. 20 years after leaving the Navy SEALs, his internal alarm remained perfectly calibrated. He lay still for a moment, listening to the pre-dawn silence of his small-town home, before sliding out of bed with practiced quietness. In the dim light of his backyard, Jack's breath formed small clouds in the crisp morning air. He dropped into a perfect plank position, muscles trembling slightly as he began his daily routine. 100 push-ups, followed by 200 sit-ups, then a series of brutal burpees that would make men half his age cry for mercy. Just another day in paradise, he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow as he completed his final set. The workout was a shadow of his SEAL training days, but it kept the edge sharp. These days, that edge was more about being ready for his daughter than for combat. Speaking of his daughter, Jack glanced at his watch and smiled. Time to wake Sam for school. In the kitchen, Jack moved with efficiency, cracking eggs into a bowl while coffee brewed. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky in shades of pink and orange when he heard the familiar creak of Sam's bedroom door. "Morning, kiddo," he called out, not turning around. "How's the next Picasso feeling today?" Samantha Riker, 16 going on 30, shuffled into the kitchen with her sketchbook tucked under one arm. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore her mother's old flannel shirt over pajama pants. "Dad, Picasso is so last century," she yawned, sliding onto a bar stool at the kitchen island. "I'm more of a Frida Kahlo." Jack placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her, studying her face. She looked more like Claire every day. The same high cheekbones, the same artistic spirit burning behind those green eyes. The thought brought both joy and an old, familiar ache. "Your mom would have loved to see your showcase tonight," Jack said softly, touching the silver locket around Sam's neck, a family heirloom that had once belonged to Claire. "She always said you had more talent in your little finger than she had in her whole body." Sam touched the locket, a small smile playing at her lips. "Tell me again about how she used to paint in the garden." Jack leaned against the counter, lost in memory. Every Sunday morning, rain or shine, she'd set up her easel under that old oak tree and just create. Sometimes I'd find her there at sunset, covered in paint, with this look of pure joy on her face. He cleared his throat. "You have that same look when you're drawing." "I miss her," Sam said quietly. Jack reached across the island and squeezed her hand. "Me too, kiddo. Me too." After a moment, he straightened up. "Now eat your eggs before they get cold. Big day ahead." "About tonight," Sam began, pushing her eggs around the plate. "I know you offered to pick me up after the showcase, but Jenny and I were thinking of walking home together. It's only a few blocks, and it's not even dark at 7. Jack felt the familiar protective instinct rise up, the same one that had kept his SEAL team alive through countless missions. But Sam wasn't a soldier under his command. She was a teenager who needed to spread her wings. "You got your phone charged?" he asked, keeping his voice casual. "Yes, Dad." "And you'll text me when you leave?" "Yes, Dad." "And you remember the self-defense moves I taught you?" "Dad." Sam rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I promise I won't need to break anyone's nose on my walk home from an art show." Jack raised his hands in surrender. All right. Just being thorough. It's what keeps me employed, after all." As a security consultant for local businesses, his cautious nature paid the bills. Later that afternoon, Sam stopped at the Gas, Northgo on Main Street to grab a bottle of water before her showcase. The bell chimed as she pushed open the door, nodding hello to Mrs. Patterson behind the counter. She was studying the drink selection when the roar of motorcycles filled the parking lot. Through the window, she saw 3 bikes pull up to the pumps, their riders clad in leather despite the warm weather. Sam grabbed her water and headed to the counter, conscious of the heavy boots entering the store behind her. As she waited for Mrs. Patterson to ring her up, she felt eyes on her back. "That's a pretty necklace you got there, sweetheart." Sam turned to find a tall biker, studying her locket. His leather vest was adorned with patches she couldn't quite read, and a jagged scar ran from his left eye to his jaw. The name Vince was stitched in faded letters above his breast pocket. "Thanks," she said shortly, turning back to the counter. "Bet it'd look real nice in my collection," Vince continued, taking a step closer. "What do you say? Want to make a deal?" Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat loudly. "Everything all right here, Sam?" "Fine," Sam replied, grabbing her water and receipt. "Have a good day, Mrs. P." She could feel Vince's eyes following her as she left the store, her heart beating a little faster than normal. It wasn't until she was halfway down the block that she realized she'd been holding her breath. That evening at dinner, Sam pushed her pasta around her plate, debating whether to mention the incident. "All right, out with it," Jack said, watching her with knowing eyes. "What's bothering you?" Sam sighed. "It's probably nothing. Just some weird guy at the gas station today. He was interested in Mom's locket." Jack's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Years of training kicked in as he cataloged every detail of Sam's story, while outwardly maintaining a calm demeanor. "Interested how?" he asked carefully. Sam shrugged. "Just made some comments. Mrs. Patterson was there, so it wasn't a big deal. He was just creepy, you know." Jack nodded, his mind already running scenarios, mapping potential threats. But he forced himself to stay relaxed, to trust his daughter's judgment, while filing away the information for later consideration. "Well, the whole town's going to be at your showcase tonight," he said instead, "including Deputy Clark, who's probably going to give me grief about being overprotective again." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Jack opened it to find Deputy Thomas Clark standing on his porch, trademark easy smile in place. "Evening, Jack," Clark drawled. "Just checking in before heading to the station. Heard there's quite a crowd expected at the community center tonight." "Tommy," Jack nodded. "Come for your daily reminder that I'm not paranoid. Just prepared?" Clark chuckled, adjusting his belt. "Now, Jack, just because you install military-grade security systems on half the businesses in town doesn't mean you're paranoid. Though I did hear you gave old Mrs. Henderson a panic button for a cat cafe. Those Maine Coons are valuable animals, Tommy." Their banter was interrupted by Sam appearing in the doorway. "Hi, Deputy Clark. Are you coming to the showcase?" "Wouldn't miss it, darling." Clark tipped his hat. "Someone's got to make sure your daddy doesn't run background checks on all the art critics." Later that evening, Sam sat cross-legged on her bed, music playing softly through her headphones as she added final touches to her latest sketch. Down in the garage, the rhythmic sound of Jack's tools provided a comforting backdrop as he worked on his latest project, restoring a vintage Harley-Davidson he'd picked up at auction. The peaceful scene was shattered just past midnight. Sam was nearly asleep when she heard it, a soft scraping sound from downstairs. She pulled out her headphones, listening intently. There it was again, followed by what sounded like footsteps on the back porch. "Dad," she called out softly, moving toward her bedroom door. The sound of breaking glass exploded through the quiet house. Before Sam could scream, a gloved hand clamped over her mouth. She fought back instinctively, driving her elbow backward just as Jack had taught her, but another pair of hands grabbed her arms. In the garage, Jack's head snapped up at the sound of shattering glass. He was moving before his conscious mind could process the noise, years of training taking over. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Sam," he shouted, bursting through her bedroom door. The room was empty, the window broken. Cool night air stirred the curtains, and Sam's sketchbook lay open on the floor, its pages fluttering. Jack rushed to the window, just in time to see taillights disappearing down the street, leaving twin tire tracks in the wet grass below. For a moment, Jack stood frozen, his world tilting on its axis. Then his eyes fell on Sam's silver locket, torn from her neck during the struggle and lying abandoned on the carpet. With trembling fingers, Jack reached into his dresser drawer and withdrew a small wooden box. Inside, nestled in velvet, lay his seal ring, a reminder of who he had been, who he might need to be again. As he slipped the ring onto his finger, Jack made a silent vow to the night air, to whatever gods might be listening, and most of all to his daughter. "I'm coming for you, Sam. And heaven help anyone who tries to stop me." The ring gleamed dully in the darkness, like the calm surface of deep water, water that concealed unfathomable depths and dangers that most men could never imagine. Jack Riker had spent years burying that part of himself, becoming the father Sam needed. But now, as police sirens began to wail in the distance, Jack felt the seal in him awakening. The warrior, the hunter, the man who had been trained to move through darkness and emerge with victory at any cost. Sam was out there, somewhere in the night, and he would find her. No matter what it took, no matter how far he had to go, no matter how much of his humanity he had to sacrifice, he would bring his daughter home. The night wind whispered through Sam's broken window, carrying with it a promise that would soon echo through the underworld of their quiet town. The predators had just become prey, and they didn't even know it yet. The first rays of dawn crept through Sam's broken window, illuminating the chaos within. Jack Riker moved through his daughter's room with mechanical precision, his SEAL training taking over as he processed the scene. Each detail was a potential lead, each piece of evidence a breadcrumb that might lead him to Sam. He crouched by the window, fingers brushing over splintered wood and shattered glass. The break was clean, professional. These weren't amateur burglars. His eyes caught something near the windowsill, a torn piece of black leather, likely ripped from a jacket during the struggle. Jack picked it up carefully, noting the distinctive snake emblem partially visible on the fragment. Near Sam's bed lay her silver charm bracelet, the clasp broken. Jack's throat tightened as he picked it up. He'd given it to her on her 16th birthday, just 3 months ago. Each charm represented a milestone in her life. A paint palette for her first art show, a tiny book for when she learned to read, a motorcycle for the time she helped him in the garage. You better have a damn good explanation for this, Riker. Deputy Clark stood in the doorway, his usual easy demeanor replaced by stern professionalism. 2 uniformed officers moved around the house behind him, taking photos and collecting evidence. Jack straightened up, holding out the piece of leather. This was torn from one of the kidnappers' jackets. And look at the tire tracks outside. They matched the types of bikes those guys at the gas station were riding yesterday. Clark sighed, pulling out his notepad. The same guys your daughter mentioned? The ones who creeped her out at the gas and go. She told me one of them was interested in her necklace, Jack insisted. His name was Vince. Mrs. Patterson was there. She can confirm. Jack, Clark cut him off, his voice softening with what sounded like practiced sympathy. We both know how teenagers can be. The art showcase was last night, right? Maybe the pressure got to her. Maybe she just needed some space. Jack's jaw clenched. Are you suggesting my daughter ran away? I'm suggesting we don't jump to conclusions, Clark replied. No signs of forced entry except the window, which could have been broken from the inside. No witnesses heard any struggle. And Sam's been through a lot since Claire passed. Don't. Jack's voice was deadly quiet. Don't you dare use her mother's death to dismiss this. Sam was taken, Tommy. I heard the struggle. I saw the car leaving. Clark tucked away his notepad. Look, protocol says we wait 48 hours in potential runaway cases. Let's give her time to cool off. Come home on her own. Meanwhile, I'll put out some feelers, check the usual hangouts. Jack watched the deputy leave, his military training warring with his instinct to punch something. He knew how this worked. By the time the police took it seriously, the trail would be cold. He couldn't wait 48 hours. Sam didn't have 48 hours. The bell above the gas and go door chimed as Jack entered. Mrs. Patterson looked up from her crossword puzzle, her face falling as she recognized him. Oh, Jack, I heard about Sam. Is there any news? Jack leaned on the counter, his voice low. I need to know about the bikers who were here yesterday. Everything you remember. Mrs. Patterson glanced nervously at the security camera in the corner. I don't want any trouble. Please, Margaret. Jack's voice cracked slightly. She's all I have left. The older woman's resolve wavered. She looked around the empty store before speaking quietly. They come through town every few weeks. Always stop here for gas, then head to that bar on the outskirts, the pit stop. Real rough place. She hesitated. The one who talked to Sam? I've seen him there before. He gives me the creeps. Thank you. Jack squeezed her hand. If anyone asks. You were never here. She nodded. Bring her home, Jack. As he drove toward the pit stop, Jack's mind drifted back, the familiar smell of gun oil and sea spray filling his nostrils. The helicopter blades whirred overhead as Jack briefed his SEAL team. The mission was straightforward: extract 3 American aid workers from a militant compound. Intelligence suggested the workers would be moved or executed within 24 hours. Remember, he told his men, their faces ghostly in the pre-dawn light. Quick, quiet, clean. We get in, we get our people, we get out. Watch your sectors and trust your training. Hours later, as the rescued aid workers hugged their families on the carrier deck, his commanding officer had pulled him aside. Damn fine work, Riker. You've got a gift for this. Knowing where to look, how to think like the enemy, when to strike. Don't lose that edge. You never know when you might need it again. The memory faded as Jack pulled into the pit stop's gravel parking lot. A dozen motorcycles gleamed in the afternoon sun, their chrome accents catching the light like bare teeth. He'd changed into worn jeans and an old leather jacket, playing the part of a drifter passing through. The bar's interior was dark and smoky, country music playing from ancient speakers. Jack ordered a beer he didn't intend to drink, finding a corner table with a clear view of the room. He noted exits, weapons, potential threats, old habits that had kept him alive in war zones. It didn't take long to spot Vince. The scarred biker held court at a central table, his leather vest now clearly displaying the same snake emblem Jack had found in Sam's room. Other bikers moved around him with deference, marking him as someone important in their hierarchy. Jack watched for hours, nursing his beer, cataloging faces and dynamics. As the afternoon wore on, one of the younger bikers stumbled toward the back door, clearly drunk. Jack waited a few minutes before following. He found the biker urinating against the building's back wall. Before the man could react, Jack had him in a chokehold, dragging him into the shadows. The Iron Serpents, Jack growled, tightening his grip. Tell me about them. I don't know what you're... The biker's protest cut off as Jack applied more pressure. The snake on your jacket. Your gang. The girl you took last night. Start talking. You're crazy, man. We're just a motorcycle club. Jack slammed him against the wall. Wrong answer. Let's try again. Where do you take them? The biker's eyes widened with understanding. Oh God, you're her father. Listen, I just ride with him sometimes. I don't know about any girls. But you know something. Jack pressed harder. Something you're afraid to tell me. Something worse than what I might do to you right now. Fear went out. The biker talked. Miles away, in a dimly lit room that smelled of mold and cigarettes, Sam worked on loosening the ropes around her wrists. They tied her to a metal chair, but their knots were sloppy. Amateur work, her father would say. You're going to hurt yourself, a quiet voice said from the darkness. Sam squinted into the shadows. Who's there? A girl about her age emerged from the corner. Her dark hair was matted, and her clothes were dirty, but her eyes were sharp and alert. I'm Ellie, she said, sitting cross-legged near Sam's chair. They brought me in last week. You're new. I'm Sam. My father. She swallowed hard. My father will find us. Ellie's laugh was hollow. That's what I thought too. But no one's coming, Sam. No one ever comes. You don't know my dad, Sam insisted. She looked around the room, noting details. Concrete walls, one high window, metal door. The air felt damp. They were probably underground. He was a Navy SEAL. He'll never stop looking. Ellie perked up slightly. Really? My dad's a high school gym teacher. Somehow I don't think that's quite the same skill set. Despite everything, Sam found herself smiling. Tell me everything you've learned about this place. We need to leave them clues. Back at the pit stop, Jack's interrogation had yielded disturbing information. The Iron Serpents weren't just a biker gang. They were part of a larger operation, moving merchandise across state lines. The biker didn't know details, but his implications made Jack's blood run cold. Human trafficking. His daughter had been taken by human traffickers. Jack forced down the wave of nausea and fury that threatened to overwhelm him. He needed to stay focused, stay tactical. Emotion would only get Sam killed. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small GPS tracker, part of his security consultant equipment. While the drunk biker sprawled unconscious behind the bar, Jack moved through the parking lot, planting the device on Vince's motorcycle. As he worked, his phone buzzed. Deputy Clark. What is it, Tommy? Where are you, Jack? Clark's voice was tight. We got the security footage from the gas and go. Shows you threatening Mrs. Patterson. I didn't threaten anyone, Jack snapped. I asked questions. Something you should be doing. This isn't helping Sam, Clark insisted. Let us handle this. If you keep poking around, you're going to get someone hurt. Jack ended the call, checking the GPS signal on his phone. Strong and clear. Now he just needed to wait for them to move. Something caught his eye as he prepared to leave. A familiar notebook lying in the bar's dumpster. Sam's sketchbook. His hands shook as he retrieved it. Most pages had been torn out, but one remained. At first glance, it appeared to be random doodles, but Jack knew his daughter. She never drew anything without meaning. The sketch showed a snake coiled around a tower. In the background, a moon hung low over water. And in the corner, barely visible, a series of numbers that looked like coordinates. Sam was leaving him a trail. Now he just had to follow it. In their underground prison, Sam and Ellie worked quietly as heavy boots paced overhead. Sam had managed to work one hand free, and was now scratching a message into the concrete wall using her charm bracelet's broken clasp. They're moving us soon, Ellie whispered. I heard them talking. Something about a shipment going out tomorrow night. Sam's hand trembled, but she kept working. The message was simple. Coordinates she'd memorized from her father's GPS unit, the one he thought she didn't know about in his garage. My dad will understand, she murmured. He'll find us. And if he does? Ellie's voice was barely audible. These men, they're not just bikers, Sam. They're monsters. Sam thought of her father. Not the gentleman who made her breakfast and supported her art, but the warrior she sometimes glimpsed in his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. That's okay, she said, finishing her message. My dad can be a monster too, when he needs to be. Above them, engines roared to life as the Iron Serpents prepared to move their precious cargo. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had taken a girl who was loved, a girl who was trained, a girl who knew how to fight, and they had enraged a father who knew how to hunt. The chase was about to begin. The old farmhouse sat half a mile off the main road, surrounded by rusting farm equipment and faded no trespassing signs. Jack pulled his truck onto the gravel driveway, remembering the last time he'd visited Mac Wilson, after Claire's funeral, when the old arms dealer had offered him a different kind of help, a chance to go back to the life he'd left behind. He'd refused then. Now he needed Mac more than ever. The security cameras tracked his movement to the front door. Before he could knock, Mac's gruff voice came through a hidden speaker. You look like hell, Riker. The door buzzed open. Jack stepped into a house that looked nothing like its decrepit exterior. State-of-the-art monitors lined one wall, displaying feeds from cameras scattered across the property. The furniture was sparse but expensive, and the air smelled of gun oil and coffee. Mac emerged from his basement workshop, wiping his hands on a rag. He was shorter than Jack remembered, his gray hair thinner, but his eyes were still sharp as tactical scopes. Heard about your girl on the police scanner, Mac said, pouring 2 cups of coffee. Figured you'd show up eventually. I need gear, Mac. The good stuff. Mac studied him over the rim of his coffee cup. Last time you were here, you said you were done with that life. Said you wanted to be just a father, not a warrior. They took my daughter. Jack's voice cracked slightly. I can't be just a father right now. Mac nodded slowly, then pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner. A section of wall slid away, revealing a steel staircase. Welcome back to the war, Chief. The basement was a warrior's paradise. Racks of weapons lined the walls. Everything from traditional firearms to cutting-edge tactical gear. Body armor hung in climate-controlled cases, and specialized equipment filled organized shelves. The Iron Serpents, Mac said, typing on a computer. Been tracking them for months? They're not just bikers. They're sophisticated, well-funded. Military training, based on their operations. Jack examined a rack of combat knives. Their leader, tell me about him, goes by Blade. Ex-Special Forces, dishonorable discharge. Real name's Marcus Shaw. Started small with drug running, built up to human trafficking. Mac pulled up surveillance photos. Smart, brutal, efficient. This won't be easy, Jack. Nothing worth doing ever is, Jack replied, selecting gear with practiced efficiency. I need to be a ghost, Mac. In and out, no traces. Mac's basement yielded a carefully curated arsenal. A suppressed pistol, tactical knife, lightweight body armor, night vision goggles, communications gear, and various tools of the infiltration trade. Everything chosen for stealth over firepower. One more thing, Max said, opening a final case. Inside lay a set of matte black throwing knives. Claire's birthday present to you before? Well, she said every warrior needs something beautiful. Jack's throat tightened as he lifted one of the knives. The balance was perfect. Back at his house, Jack transformed his backyard into a training ground. He set up targets, improvised obstacles, and began the process of awakening muscles that had grown soft with civilian life. Hours blurred together as he worked. Knife throws in the dawn light, each blade finding its mark with increasing precision. Hand-to-hand combat drills against a heavy bag, his body remembering the deadly dance of close-quarter battle. Stealth exercises through his own house, moving without a sound, becoming one with the shadows. By sunset, his body ached, but his mind was razor-sharp. The warrior was awake. Meanwhile, in their underground prison, Sam listened as Ellie finally opened up about her captivity. I was walking home from work, Ellie said, hugging her knees to her chest. Just a normal Tuesday evening at the diner. I'd done that walk 100 times. She wiped her eyes. They grabbed me so fast, no one even noticed. My parents probably think I ran away. How long have you been here? Sam asked softly. 3 weeks? 4? It's hard to tell down here. Ellie's voice trembled. They move us around a lot. Different rooms, different buildings. I've heard them talking about buyers. Sam reached through the darkness, finding Ellie's hand. We're gonna get out of here. Together. You don't understand, Ellie whispered. The things I've seen them do to girls who try to escape. There was this one girl, Katie. She almost made it. They caught her at the fence. After that, she shuddered. Their leader, Blade. He makes examples of people. Before Sam could respond, her father's GPS tracker buzzed in her pocket. She'd managed to keep it hidden, absorbing a beating when they'd found her phone, but missing the tiny device. The screen showed multiple signals converging on a location across town. They're moving the operation, she realized. We need to leave them something for my dad to find. Across town, Jack watched those same GPS signals on his phone. The Iron Serpents were gathering at an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. His intel suggested it was a temporary holding facility before they moved merchandise to coastal ports. The thought of his daughter being referred to as merchandise made his blood boil. The warehouse lay dark and silent as Jack approached through the shadows. His night vision revealed 2 guards at the main entrance, another on the roof. Sloppy security, they weren't expecting trouble. The first guard went down silently, a precise strike to the throat cutting off any alarm. The second reached for his radio, but found a knife in his shoulder instead. Jack caught him before he could fall, dragging both bodies into the shadows. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and wooden crates. Jack moved like a ghost, years of training transforming him into living shadow. 2 more guards fell before they knew he was there. An office area overlooked the main floor. Jack found paperwork scattered across desks, shipping manifests, fake documents, money transfers. The Iron Serpents were indeed part of something bigger, something with international reach. But no sign of Sam. Looking for something? Jack spun to find Deputy Clark in the doorway, gun drawn. How long, Tommy? Jack asked quietly. How long have you been on their payroll? Clark's face hardened. You don't understand the big picture, Jack. This is bigger than your daughter. There are powerful people involved, people who can't be touched. Everyone can be touched, Jack replied. Everyone bleeds. This is your last warning, Clark said. Back off. Go home. Report her as a runaway. In a few months, the pain will fade. Life goes on, like it did for Ellie's parents, for all the other families. Something flickered in Clark's eyes. I keep the peace, Jack. Sometimes that means looking the other way. You should try it. Peace. Jack's voice was dangerous. You haven't seen my kind of peace yet, Tommy. But you will. Clark's radio crackled. Sir, we've got movement on the east side. Jack was moving before Clark could react. A thrown knife knocked the gun from the deputy's hand, and then they were grappling in the darkness. Clark was younger, stronger, but Jack had been trained by the best. The fight ended with Clark unconscious, handcuffed to a pipe with his own cuffs. Jack left him there, evidence for the real police to find later. In another part of the warehouse, Sam worked quickly with a broken nail, carving into the wood of a shipping crate. The message was simple: coordinates, a date, and a rough sketch of the safe house she'd overheard them discussing. "Someone's coming," Ellie hissed. Sam had just finished when the door burst open. Armed men poured in, led by a tall figure with a scarred face and cold eyes. "So," Blade said, studying Sam, "you're the one causing all this trouble. Your daddy's been quite busy tonight." Sam met his gaze defiantly. "You have no idea what's coming for you." Blade smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, but I do. Ex-SEAL, right? I knew men like him in the service. Warriors, they called themselves. But every warrior has a weakness." He turned to his men. "Put out the word. 100,000 to whoever brings me Jack Riker's head." "Sir," one of the men interrupted. "We found another girl during the sweep. She was hiding in a ventilation shaft. They dragged Ellie in, struggling and crying." Sam's heart sank, but then she saw movement in the shadows behind Blade. A familiar silhouette, moving like liquid darkness. Her father had found them. The next few moments were chaos. The lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. Gunshots erupted, but they were shooting blind. Sam heard the wet sound of knife meeting flesh, the crack of bones breaking. When emergency lights flickered on, four of Blade's men lay scattered across the floor. But Blade himself was gone, and he'd taken Sam with him. Jack found Ellie huddled in a corner, terrified but alive. "Where did they take her?" he demanded. "The safe house," Ellie stammered. "Up the coast. They have a compound there, heavily guarded. That's where they processed the girls before." She couldn't finish. Jack helped her up, his voice gentle now. "You're safe. I'm going to get you home to your parents. But first, I need you to tell me everything you know about this compound." As they talked, Jack found something on the floor, a sketch Sam had made, probably weeks ago, showing their family. Him, her, Claire, all smiling, all together. The paper was crumpled and stained, but the love in every pencil stroke was clear. Jack carefully folded the drawing and placed it over his heart, next to Claire's locket. Then he checked his weapons, plotting his next move. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere up the coast, in a fortified compound, Blade was about to learn the true meaning of fear. Because he hadn't just taken a girl, he'd taken a warrior's daughter. And now that warrior was coming for blood. Dawn painted the horizon in shades of blood as Jack dialed a number he hadn't used in years. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Who the hell calls at 5 in the morning?" "Logan," Jack said quietly. "It's Riker. I need your help." The line went silent for a moment. "Jesus, Jack. Last time I heard your voice, we were pulling out of Kandahar." Logan Matthews had been Jack's second-in-command in the SEALs, the only man he trusted to watch his six in the darkest moments. "What's wrong?" "They took Sam." Another pause. "Oh." "Biker gang called the Iron Serpents. But they're not just bikers. They're running girls across state lines. Military precision, international connections. Their leader goes by Blade." "Marcus Shaw," Logan interrupted. "Yeah, I know the name. He was Delta Force before he went rogue. Word is he's built quite an empire on the coast." Keys clicked in the background. "Give me an hour. I'll pull every thread I can find." While he waited, Jack spread out Sam's clues on his kitchen table. The carved coordinates from the warehouse matched a stretch of coastline 30 miles north. Her drawings, when overlaid with local maps, highlighted several possible locations for the compound. The GPS data from the trackers showed regular movement patterns, supply runs, guard changes, patrol routes. Sam had been watching, learning, leaving him a trail of breadcrumbs that only a father could follow. His phone buzzed. Logan had sent a file, satellite imagery of a coastal compound, heavily fortified. "It's their main processing center," Logan explained. "They hold the girls there before shipping them overseas through private ports. Security is tight. Ex-military contractors, motion sensors, the works." "Any weak points?" "Northern perimeter backs up to cliffs. They don't guard it as heavily, because they figure no one's crazy enough to climb up from the ocean." Logan paused. "You're going to climb up from the ocean, aren't you?" "First I need more intel," Jack replied. "What can you tell me about their operation?" "They're connected, Jack. Local law enforcement, border patrol, even some federal agents on the payroll. Blade built this network over years. He's not just muscle. He's smart, methodical. Like someone else we knew? Yeah. Logan's voice was grim. Reminds me of Rodriguez before he snapped. Remember that clusterfucking boss Ra? Jack remembered. Rodriguez had been their team leader before Jack. A brilliant tactician who'd gone off the deep end, started enjoying the killing too much. The mission to take him down had cost them 3 good men. Send me everything you have, Jack said. And Logan? Thank you. Just bring her home, brother. Then maybe come fishing sometime. My boat's got room for 2. Jack's next move took him to a dive bar on the edge of town. He'd tracked one of Blade's lieutenants here, a man who might have valuable intelligence about the compound's layout. The biker stumbled out around midnight, drunk and careless. He never saw Jack coming. When he woke up, he was zip-tied to a chair in an abandoned gas station, a single light bulb swinging overhead. Evening, Jack said pleasantly, cleaning one of Claire's throwing knives. Let's talk about your boss. The biker, whose vest identified him as Razor, spat on the floor. Go to hell. Jack's smile didn't reach his eyes. Here's the thing about pain, Razor. Physical torture? It's unreliable. People will say anything to make it stop. But fear. He tested the knife's edge. Fear is honest. And right now you're afraid? I ain't afraid of you. No. Jack moved closer. Then why is your heart racing? Why are you sweating? Your body knows what your mind hasn't accepted yet. You're not leaving here until I get what I need. Hour by hour, Jack broke down the biker's resistance. Not with violence, but with precise psychological pressure. He described Razor's childhood home in detail, mentioned his elderly mother by name, listed his recent movements. We've been watching you for weeks, Jack lied smoothly. Every move, every contact, every secret. The only question is whether you're valuable enough to keep alive. By dawn, Razor was talking. He revealed guard rotations, security protocols, and most importantly, Blade's eventual plans for Sam. He's got a buyer lined up, Razor admitted. Russian collector, likes them young and spirited. Ships out in 3 days. Jack's hand tightened on the knife, but his voice remained calm. Thank you for your cooperation. He left Razor tied up with an anonymous tip to the state police. Let them sort out his crimes. His next stop was Ellie's family reunion. He'd driven her home the night before, watching from the shadows as her parents rushed out to embrace their lost daughter. Now he observed from his truck as news vans gathered outside their house. Ellie caught his eye through the window and slipped outside. They want me to do interviews, she said, hugging herself. Tell my story, warn other girls. She looked up at him. Will you find her? I promise. Jack squeezed her shoulder. Focus on healing. You've done enough. Back in his truck, Jack's phone chimed with a video message. His heart stopped when he saw Sam's face. She was tied to a chair, bruised but defiant. Blade's scarred face appeared in frame. I have to admire her spirit, Riker, he said, running a knife along Sam's cheek. She's quite the artist, too. Keeps leaving little messages for Daddy. The camera panned to show Sam's drawings crumpled on the floor. But here's the thing about hope. It can be broken. The video ended with Blade's promise. Come alone to these coordinates in 2 hours, or I start sending her back to you in pieces. Jack's hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel. But before he could move, another development caught his attention. Through his truck's window, he saw Mrs. Patterson from the gas and go arguing with someone outside her store. As he watched, more townspeople gathered. He's doing what the police wouldn't, Mrs. Patterson was saying. Those monsters took Ellie, took Sam, who knows how many others. He's bringing violence to our town, someone countered. My kid can't sleep because of the shootings at the warehouse. Good. This from Mr. Henderson, the hardware store owner. Let them be scared. Let them know we won't tolerate this anymore. The debate spread through town like wildfire. Some called Jack a vigilante, a danger to public safety. Others, particularly parents, understood his desperation. But Jack had no time for public opinion. He needed to move fast. He was cutting through the police station's back parking lot when he heard voices from the alley. He recognized them both. It's falling apart, Clark was saying. Riker's stirring up the town, asking questions. We need to end this. Patience, Deputy. Blade's voice was calm. Everything's proceeding according to plan. Once the merchandise ships out, things will quiet down. And your retirement fund will be quite comfortable. And Riker will be dealt with permanently. Jack recorded the conversation on his phone, adding it to his growing collection of evidence against the corrupt deputy. Meanwhile, in her cell at the compound, Sam was working on her own plan. "Hey," she called to the guard outside her door. "I need medical attention. My ribs. I think something's broken." The guard, younger than the others, newer to the operation, hesitated. "Please," Sam groaned. "I can't breathe right. Blade won't be happy if his merchandise is damaged." The magic word worked. The guard entered, carrying a medical kit. "Let me see," he said, approaching her. Sam didn't waste her chance. The moment he got close, she drove her head into his nose, just like her father had taught her. As he stumbled back, she managed to grab a pen from the medical kit. Hours later, when they brought her dinner, she had another message ready, hidden in plain sight as a random doodle on her paper plate. Across town, Jack was setting his trap. He leaked information through carefully chosen channels about a major drug shipment coming in by sea. The Iron Serpents, always looking to expand their operation, took the bait. As he watched through binoculars, a dozen bikes roared out of the compound, heading for the false coordinates. The security at the safe house would be lighter now. But his satisfaction was short-lived. Logan called with disturbing news. "Jack, I found Blade's military records. It's worse than we thought. He wasn't just Delta Force. He was their infiltration specialist. Close quarters combat, psychological warfare, deep cover operations. He wrote the book on some of the techniques we learned in training." "He's more than that," Jack replied, remembering the cold calculation in Blade's eyes. "He's like Rodriguez, a predator who found a way to hunt legally. Be careful, brother. Men like that, they don't think like normal people. Everything's a game to them, and they play for keeps." Jack watched the sun setting over the ocean, knowing that somewhere out there, his daughter was waiting for rescue. But Blade was waiting too, ready to spring whatever trap he'd prepared. The real question was, who was hunting whom? The next few hours would answer that question, and the answer would be written in blood. The safe house loomed against the darkening sky, a 3-story fortress masquerading as an abandoned beach property. Jack lay prone in the sandy scrubland, studying the compound through his tactical binoculars. High-end security cameras swept the perimeter while armed guards patrolled in precise patterns, military training evident in their movements. For on the ground floor, he muttered into his satellite phone. 2 on the roof. Motion sensors on all entry points. "Sounds cozy," Logan's voice crackled through the earpiece. "What's your play?" Jack tracked a guard's movement, counting seconds between rotations. "They're good, but they're comfortable. Getting sloppy. The east side guard smokes every 40 minutes. Creates a blind spot, just like that compound in Fallujah." Exactly. Jack's mind flashed back to that mission. Another rescue. Another fortress that had seemed impenetrable. "I'm going to need a distraction on the west side in about 2 hours. Think you can manage that from your position?" "Already got it covered. Just like old times, brother." As Jack worked out his approach, something caught his eye. One of the guards was wearing a leather jacket that looked recently damaged, probably from the warehouse fight. A piece of paper fluttered from the torn pocket as he walked. Jack's heart raced as he retrieved it moments later. A detailed sketch of the compound, drawn in Sam's distinctive style. She'd marked patrol routes, blind spots, and, most importantly, an arrow pointing to what looked like a maintenance tunnel on the building's north side. "That's my girl," he whispered, pride mixing with worry. She was using her skills, staying sharp, just as he'd taught her. But if she was caught leaving these clues? He pushed the thought aside. Focus on the mission. Everything else was distraction. Night fell like a heavy curtain as Jack began his approach. The guard with the smoking habit had just finished his cigarette, creating the window Jack needed. He moved like a shadow across the grounds, his black tactical gear blending with the darkness. The first guard never saw him coming. Jack's arm wrapped around his throat in a perfect blood choke. Unconscious in seconds, quietly lowered to the ground. No alarm raised. "One down," he subvocalized into his calm, moving to phase 2. The second guard fell, just as silently, this time to a thrown knife that caught him in the shoulder. Before he could cry out, Jack was there, applying pressure to specific nerve points. Another quiet takedown. Inside the safe house, Sam worked persistently at her restraints. She'd been surprised and heartbroken to see Ellie brought back, but now they had a chance to work together. The guard change is in 10 minutes, Ellie whispered. The new guy, Marcus, he's not as careful about checking the restraints. Sam nodded, her wrists raw but nearly free. When I give the signal, be ready to run. No matter what happens, don't stop. What about you? My dad's coming. I know he is. I just need to buy him time. Outside, Jack had eliminated 4 more guards, working his way methodically toward the maintenance tunnel Sam had marked. The lock was high-end, but yielded to his electronic picks in under a minute. The tunnel led to a basement level not shown on any official plans. As Jack moved through the shadows, he found himself in what looked like a command center. Computer screens displayed surveillance feeds, and filing cabinets lined the walls. One cabinet caught his attention. It was newer than the others, with a biometric lock. The guard he'd interrogated had mentioned something about special files in the basement. Jack pulled out a device Mac had given him, a fingerprint replicator loaded with prints lifted from Blade's wine glass at the warehouse. Technology had come a long way since his active duty days. The cabinet clicked open, revealing a treasure trove of intelligence. Shipping manifests, bank statements, photographs. The Iron Serpents weren't just part of a trafficking network. They were a key hub, moving merchandise across 3 continents. Logan, Jack whispered into his comm, I'm sending you photos. Get these to our old friends at the FBI. Before Logan could respond, alarms blared through the building. Jack's head snapped up to the security feeds. Blade was in Sam's cell, ordering men to move her. Time's up, Blade's voice carried through the speakers. Your father wants to play games? Let's see how he handles this one. Jack was already moving, pulling out the explosive charges he'd brought as backup. He planted them at key structural points as he worked his way up through the building. In her cell, Sam struggled as armed men grabbed her arms. You're making a mistake, she warned them. When my father finds you. That's the plan, sweetheart. Blade smiled coldly. Dear old dad's been a thorn in my side long enough. Time to end this game. The first explosion rocked the building's foundation. Smoke and confusion filled the corridors as guards scrambled to respond. Jack triggered the second charge, then the third, creating a symphony of chaos. Through the smoke, he caught glimpses of movement. People running, shouting, trying to maintain order. But he was focused on one target. Vince, the biker from the gas station, stumbled out of a side room, coughing from the smoke. Jack's hand closed around his throat, slamming him against the wall. Where is she? Please, Vince choked out. You don't understand. Blade's crazy. This whole thing was a setup from the start. He wanted you to come. Talk fast. He's taking her to the airstrip, private plane waiting. But he's not planning to ship her out. He's gonna kill her. Make you watch. Said it would be poetic or some shit. Jack's grip tightened. Which airstrip? Old Miller Field, 10 miles north. Please. I just followed orders. Like you did at the gas station? When you targeted a teenage girl? Jack's voice was deadly quiet. Remember what you said about her necklace? About adding it to your collection? Fear bloomed in Vince's eyes as he recognized the fury in Jack's face. I have information, names, dates, locations. I can help. So can your phone. Jack slammed Vince's head against the wall, catching him as he slumped unconscious. A quick search yielded a smartphone with encrypted messages. Logan, I need satellite coverage of Miller Field now. Working on it. But Jack, you'll never make it by car. Too many roadblocks between here and there. Through a window, Jack spotted a row of motorcycles in the compound's parking area. A plan formed. Who says I'm taking a car? The Harley roared to life beneath him, its engine growling like a predator as Jack opened the throttle. He'd spent enough time restoring bikes to know how to handle one at speed. The wind tore at his tactical gear as he raced down coastal roads, pushing the machine to its limits. In his ear, Logan called out updates. They're at the airstrip. Planes fueling up. Multiple armed hostiles. Jack, you've got maybe 10 minutes before they're airborne. Jack leaned lower over the handlebars, pushing for more speed. His daughter's life measured in minutes, in heartbeats, in the distance between here and horizon. He hit the airstrip's gate at full speed, smashing through the barrier. Gunfire erupted from the shadows, bullets whining past his head. Up ahead, he could see figures loading something into a white van. The motorcycle's tires screamed as Jack laid it down, sliding under a burst of automatic fire. He rolled to his feet, weapons already drawn, dropping 2 gunmen before they could adjust their aim. But he was too late. The van's engine roared as it peeled away from the plane, tires throwing gravel. Jack emptied his magazine at the vehicle, but the rounds sparked off armored panels. No! The cry tore from his throat as the van disappeared into the night. Breathing hard, he swept the area for threats before approaching the spot where the van had been parked. Something caught his eye, a piece of paper, weighted down with a small rock. His hands shook as he unfolded it. Sam's drawing showed an airplane tail, complete with a distinctive logo, a stylized eagle clutching a lightning bolt. "Logan," he barked into his comm, "I need everything you can find on private aviation companies using an eagle and lightning bolt logo. And give me satellite tracking on that van." She was still leaving him clues. Still fighting. Still alive. Jack pocketed the drawing and checked his weapons. They thought they'd escaped, thought they'd won this round. But they didn't understand what they were dealing with. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This wasn't just a father looking for his daughter. This was a SEAL on the hunt, and he was just getting started. The night wasn't over. And somewhere out there, a white van carried precious cargo, a teenage girl who refused to give up, who trusted her father would find her. Sam stared out the van's tiny window at the disappearing airstrip, her heart aching at how close rescue had been. But she smiled slightly as she pictured her father finding her latest clue. "Keep running," she whispered to her captors. "He won't stop. Not ever." In the distance, police sirens began to wail. But Jack was already moving, already planning his next move. The hunt would continue until he had his daughter back. And heaven help anyone who stood in his way. The files from the safe house basement spread across Jack's kitchen table like a spider's web, each thread connecting to something darker. Logan had helped him organize the intelligence into a digital map, revealing a network that stretched far beyond the Iron Serpents. "It's not just girls anymore," Jack said into his satellite phone, studying the documents. "They're trafficking anything that brings a profit: drugs, weapons, people. The bikers are just the muscle." "Our FBI contact confirms it," Logan replied. "The Iron Serpents work for a larger organization. They call themselves the Shadow Consortium." Jack traced a line on the map. "These shipping routes, they're using legitimate businesses as cover. High-end car dealerships, art galleries, private aviation companies. Classic front operations. Clean, respectable, perfect for laundering both money and merchandise." Before Jack could respond, his other phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It contained a single image: a broken taillight on a white van, shards of red plastic scattered on asphalt. "She's leaving a trail," Jack breathed. "Logan, I need traffic camera footage along Highway 101, heading north. Look for a white van with a broken right taillight. Already on it. Sam's definitely your daughter. Smart kid." Inside that van, Sam watched through the tiny window as another piece of red plastic fell to the road. She'd managed to break the taillight during a bathroom stop, making sure to scatter the pieces widely. "Keep your head down," the guard snapped, but Sam had already seen what she needed: a mile marker, a distinctive billboard, another breadcrumb for her father to follow. The van's route led Jack to a name: Rex Gallagher, a business consultant who specialized in connecting buyers with suppliers. His legitimate clients included luxury car importers and art collectors. His real business was moving merchandise for the Shadow Consortium. "Got him," Logan reported. "He's checked into the Sunset Motel, room 115. Regular customer. Always the same room." Jack studied the motel's layout on his tablet. Single story, exterior corridors, security cameras, but no guards. Rex was confident in his anonymity. That confidence was his mistake. Rex Gallagher returned from dinner to find his motel room dark. Before he could reach for the light switch, a hand clamped over his mouth, dragging him inside. "Hello, Rex." Jack's voice was conversational as he zip-tied the man to a chair. "We need to talk about the Shadow Consortium." Rex's eyes widened. He was younger than Jack expected, maybe 30, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in the cheap motel. When Jack removed his hand, Rex immediately started bargaining. "Whatever they're paying you, I can double it, triple it. The consortium has deep pockets. Where's Blade taking the girls?" "I don't know what you're—" Rex's words cut off as Jack pressed a knife to his throat. "Wrong answer. Let's try again. My daughter was in that van." Where are they heading? Fear replaced calculation in Rex's eyes. You're a father? Oh God. Listen, it's not what you think. This wasn't supposed to happen. Blade's gone rogue. Explain. The consortium, we have rules. We don't take local girls, don't draw attention. But Blade, he's become obsessed with breaking people. Not just the merchandise, their families too. He said making you watch would be beautiful. Jack's grip tightened on the knife. The meeting location. Now, abandoned church, 40 miles north. But he's expecting you. It's a trap. I'm counting on it. Meanwhile, the van had stopped at a remote gas station. Sam was led to a bathroom, another guard watching the door. Inside, she found she wasn't alone. A boy about 12 huddled in the corner, tears streaking his dirty face. His clothes were expensive but torn, his wrists raw from restraints. Hey, Sam whispered, kneeling beside him. I'm Sam. What's your name? Toby, he stammered. They took me from my school. My dad, he's rich, they want money. Sam's heart ached. Listen to me, Toby. My father is coming for us. He's going to get us out of here. But until then, we have to be brave and smart. Can you do that? Toby nodded slowly. Good. Now, here's what we're going to do. Hours later, Jack approached the abandoned church under a cloudy moon. The building's stone walls rose like ancient bones, its broken windows dark and accusatory. No guards visible. No vehicles. No sign of the white van. His phone rang. Did you really think I'd make it that easy? Blade's voice was amused. I expected better from a SEAL. Where is she? Safe for now. But the clock's ticking, Jack. Every hour you waste chasing shadows is an hour closer to her final destination. I'm going to find you, Jack promised. And when I do, you'll what? Kill me? Like you killed Rodriguez in Basra. Blade laughed. Oh yes, I know all about that mission. The great Jack Riker, forced to execute his own commander. How does it feel, knowing you might have to make the same choice with your daughter? The line went dead, leaving Jack alone with his ghosts. His phone buzzed again. Ellie calling. Mr. Riker? I remember something about where they took us first. There was this factory, an old textile mill. I could hear machines sometimes and trains. Jack's tactical mind engaged. Where exactly? I'm not sure, but there was a smell like chocolate. And I remember seeing a sign through a window, Miller's Crossing. The industrial district, Jack realized. There's an abandoned textile factory next to the old chocolate plant. They used it as a processing center, Ellie continued. That's where they broke the fighters. The ones who resisted. Jack's blood ran cold. Thank you, Ellie. You've been very brave. But after he hung up, the weight of it all suddenly crashed down on him. Jack slumped against his truck, memories flooding back. The mission in Basra, Rodriguez holding a gun to a child's head, completely unhinged. Jack taking the shot, watching his commander fall. The knowledge that he'd killed a man he once trusted with his life. Other faces floated past. Teammates lost, missions gone wrong. The constant weight of command decisions that meant life or death. I can't lose her too, he whispered to the night. Not Sam. Not like Claire. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over his video files. He found one from 3 months ago, Sam's 16th birthday. Dad, stop filming. Sam laughed on screen, paint smeared on her cheek as she worked on a canvas. I'm trying to concentrate, just documenting the creative process. Jack's voice came from behind the camera. What's this one about? Sam stepped back, revealing a painting of 2 figures silhouetted against the sunset. It's us. See? The tall one is you, always standing guard. And the smaller one is me, but I'm standing guard too. Because that's what we do. We protect each other. The video ended, but Jack kept staring at the frozen image of his daughter's smile. She was right. They protected each other. And he wasn't done protecting her yet. New determination flooded his veins as he studied the factory's blueprint on his tablet. The building had 3 main entrances, numerous broken windows, and a network of catwalks above the production floor. Perfect for an ambush in either direction. Logan, I need thermal imaging of that factory. How many heat signatures? Working on it. Got it. At least 15 bodies inside, concentrated in the east wing. One smaller figure separated from the rest. Could be Sam. Jack checked his weapons, then his backup weapons. He wouldn't go in blind this time. Wouldn't let emotion cloud his judgment. I'm going to need a distraction, he told Logan. Something big enough to draw their attention, but controlled enough not to put the hostages at risk. Already ahead of you, brother. Remember that trick we pulled in Kandahar? A slight smile crossed Jack's face. The Ghost Army. Exactly. I've got some friends in position. When you give the signal, we'll make that factory sound like it's being invaded by a full tactical team. Jack settled into a sniper's position overlooking the factory, watching guard patterns through his scope. Years of training took over as he formulated his plan. He would go in quiet, using the chaos of the fake assault as cover. Find Sam and Toby, get them to safety. Then, if necessary, he would deal with Blade. But first he had to make it count. Had to be the SEAL again, the warrior who could compartmentalize emotion and execute the mission with cold precision. Sam was counting on that warrior. And this time, failure wasn't an option. Hold on, kiddo, he whispered, checking his watch. The shadows are about to get crowded. Inside the factory, Sam held Toby's hand as they listened to the guard's heavy footsteps above. She'd managed to hide a piece of broken glass from the taillight, keeping it ready. Soon, she knew her father would come. And when he did, all hell would break loose. She just hoped they were ready for what would happen next. The abandoned textile factory loomed against the pre-dawn sky, its broken windows staring out like blind eyes. Jack studied the compound through his thermal scope, counting heat signatures and security measures. I've got 4 guards on the perimeter, he whispered into his comm, 2 German shepherds near the loading dock. Motion sensors on all main entrances. What about the roof? Logan's voice crackled in his ear. 2 more guards. They're professional. Overlapping fields of view, regular radio checks. Jack's trained I caught another detail. And they've got military-grade night vision. These aren't just bikers anymore. Inside the factory's makeshift holding cell, Sam worked intently at her handcuffs with a hairpin she'd managed to keep hidden. Beside her, Toby watched the door nervously. What if they catch us? The boy whispered. They won't, Sam assured him, though her wrists were raw from the effort. My dad taught me this trick. You just have to feel for the... There was a quiet click as the lock gave way. How did you learn to do that? Sam smiled slightly, remembering the lessons in her garage. My dad believes in being prepared. He used to make games out of it, timing how fast I could get out of different restraints. I thought it was silly then, but now, outside, Jack moved like a ghost through the shadows. The first motion sensor fell to a burst of electromagnetic interference from a device Mac had provided. The second required more traditional methods. A carefully aimed stone that adjusted its angle just enough to create a blind spot. The guard dogs presented a different challenge. Jack reached into his pocket, retrieving a small aerosol can, another gift from Mac. The spray contained synthesized pheromones that would mask his scent. Just like that mission in Colombia, he muttered, applying the spray. The dogs would still see him, but they wouldn't recognize him as an intruder. One by one, Jack planted small devices at strategic points around the factory's perimeter. To the casual observer, they looked like innocent pieces of debris. But when activated, they would create the illusion of a much larger assault force. Sam and Toby had managed to open their cell door, but now faced a difficult decision. The hallway stretched in both directions, empty for the moment. We should run, Toby urged, his voice trembling. Sam shook her head. Not yet. If my dad's here, running blind could ruin his plan. We need to be smart about this. She pulled the piece of broken taillight glass from her sock. Let's gather intelligence first. The guard never saw Jack coming. One moment he was checking his radio, the next he was unconscious, lowered silently to the ground. The second guard had time to reach for his weapon before a thrown knife caught him in the shoulder, followed by a precise strike to the throat. Jack caught the man's radio before it could clatter to the ground. 2 down, he whispered to Logan. Moving to the east wing, the next 3 guards fell just as efficiently. One to a chokehold, another to a devastating sequence of close combat strikes. The third knocked unconscious before he could raise the alarm. In his command center, Blade watched the security feeds with growing concern. Guards were disappearing from their posts, communication channels going silent. He's here, he snarled to his lieutenant. Initiate Protocol 0. Burn it all, sir? What about the merchandise? Blade's eyes were cold. Acceptable losses. No evidence, no witnesses. That's the rule. Throughout the factory, sprinkler systems began spraying not water, but accelerant. Guards rushed to set charges at key structural points, while others began herding prisoners toward the loading dock. Jack was dealing with another guard when he heard Sam's voice echo through the building. "Dad, they're setting fires." He switched to thermal imaging, watching in horror as heat blooms began spreading through the factory's old wooden structure. "I've got a fix on Sam's location," Logan reported urgently. "Third floor, northwest corner. But you need to hurry. That building's going up fast." Jack moved with deadly purpose now, no longer worried about stealth. Two guards rounded a corner and found themselves facing the full fury of a father whose child was in danger. The fight was brutal and short. Smoke began filling the corridors as Jack fought his way upward. The heat was intense, but his mind was focused on a single goal. He burst through a door to find Sam standing protectively in front of Toby, the broken glass held like a weapon. "Dad!" The reunion happened in a heartbeat, a fierce hug that contained all their fear and love and relief. But there was no time for more. "We need to move," Jack said, already checking their exit routes. "Buildings coming down around us." His phone rang. "Ellie." "Mr. Riker." "The factory." Blada's men waiting outside. Snipers on the nearby buildings. "How do you know this?" I remembered more. They talked about it when I was there. Something called Protocol Zero. They trap people inside, wait for them to run from the fire, then... "Thanks, Ellie. Stay safe." Jack turned to Sam and Toby. "Change of plans. We're not using the main exits." The fire was spreading rapidly now, turning the factory into an inferno. Jack led them through a maze of catwalks and maintenance passages, using his tactical knowledge to stay ahead of the flames. Bullets sparked off metal as Blade's men spotted them through the windows. Jack returned fire, making each shot count, always keeping his body between the children and danger. "There." Sam pointed to a partially collapsed section of wall. Beyond it, they could see the river that ran behind the factory. "It's too high," Toby cried, looking down at the dark water. More gunfire forced them to duck. The heat was becoming unbearable, and parts of the ceiling were beginning to collapse. "Do you trust me?" Jack asked them both. Sam squeezed Toby's hand. "Always." "Then jump on my mark." Jack laid down, covering fire as Sam and Toby positioned themselves. The flames were nearly on them now, and the building was groaning with imminent collapse. "Now!" They leaped into the darkness, just as an explosion rocked the factory. Jack felt the heat of the fireball at his back as they plunged into the cold river below. The current carried them downstream, away from the burning factory and the gunfire. When they finally dragged themselves onto the bank, they were cold and soaked but alive. Jack quickly checked them both for injuries. Sam was bruised but okay, and Toby seemed unharmed apart from being terrified. Then his phone rang again. "I have to admire your persistence." Blade's voice was calm despite the chaos. "But you've only delayed the inevitable. The Shadow Consortium doesn't leave loose ends. It's over, Blade. The FBI has your files. Your network is exposed. You think this was my whole operation? This was just one small piece, Jack. A test, really. And you performed beautifully." There was a pause. "Did you ever wonder why I chose your daughter? Out of all the possible targets." Jack's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Ask yourself, how did I know so much about your SEAL career? About Rodriguez? Some secrets stay buried. Until someone digs them up." The line went dead, leaving Jack with a growing sense of dread. This wasn't over. Whatever game Blade was playing, whatever connection existed between their pasts, it went deeper than he'd imagined. Sam touched his arm. "Dad? What is it?" Jack pulled her close, including Toby in the embrace. They were alive. They were together. For now, that had to be enough. But as he watched the factory burn against the night sky, Jack knew this was just the beginning. Blade was still out there, and he had more plans, more secrets to reveal. The real war was about to begin. The safe house Logan had arranged sat high on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Inside, Jack watched the sunrise while Sam and Toby finally slept, exhausted from their ordeal at the factory. His satellite phone buzzed. "Logan." "I'm an hour out," his old teammate reported. "How are the kids?" "Physically?" They'll be okay. Mentally. Jack sighed. We need to end this, Logan. Blade, the consortium, all of it. That's why I'm coming. You're not in this alone anymore, brother. When Logan arrived, he brought not just tactical gear but also fresh clothes, food, and medical supplies. The years had added gray to his beard, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Good to see you in person, Chief. Logan clasped Jack's hand. Though I wish it were under better circumstances. Their reunion was interrupted by Sam's quiet voice from the doorway. Dad? Can we talk? Jack found Sam on the back deck, watching the waves crash below. She'd showered and changed, but couldn't quite hide the trembling in her hands. I keep thinking about the others, she said softly. In that factory, girls like Ellie, boys like Toby. Some of them were so young. We'll find them, Jack promised. All of them. I wasn't just trying to escape, you know. Sam's voice grew stronger. I was gathering intelligence like you taught me, watching guard rotations, memorizing faces, listening to conversations. She met his eyes. I want to help stop them. Sam, Dad, please. I'm not just a victim. I'm your daughter. You trained me to be strong, to fight smart. Let me help. Before Jack could respond, Toby appeared, clutching a cup of hot chocolate Logan had made him. I know where they take the shipments, he said quietly. I heard the guards talking about it. There's a hidden dock beneath an old cannery. That's where the boats come in. Jack and Logan exchanged looks. The boy continued, his voice growing more confident. They have a system. The boats arrive at night, during the lowest tide. They use shipping containers marked with food company logos, but inside. He shuddered. You're very brave, telling us this, Logan said gently. Sam protected me in there, Toby replied. I want to help protect others. That afternoon, Jack and Logan scouted the docks, using the cover of legitimate fishing operations to observe the cannery Toby had described. Look at the water patterns, Logan pointed. There's a submarine channel running right up to that building. Perfect for small boats to slip in undetected. Jack studied the area through his binoculars. Security's tight. Camera coverage, armed patrols, motion sensors on the perimeter fence. Just like old times? Logan grinned. Remember that port in Yemen? You mean where you nearly got us killed trying to speak Arabic? Hey, it worked, didn't it? Their banter was interrupted by Jack's phone. Sam had sent him something. It was a detailed sketch of the docks, based on Toby's descriptions and their own reconnaissance photos. She's got your eye for detail, Logan commented, studying the drawing. Look, she's marked all the blind spots in their security. Jack knew he should tell Sam to stay out of it, to focus on healing. But he recognized the steel in her voice, the same determination that had kept him going through SEAL training. We'll set up here, he decided, marking positions on Sam's map. Full surveillance package, cameras, directional mics, thermal imaging. If Blade shows up, we'll know. They spend the next few hours planting equipment, using their military training to stay undetected. Logan had brought the latest surveillance tech, including underwater sensors to detect approaching boats. As they worked, Jack caught snippets of conversation from the dock workers. Something big was happening tonight. A major player was coming to meet with Blade. Their patience was rewarded just before sunset. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the cannery, and a distinguished-looking man stepped out, flanked by bodyguards. Got a facial recognition hit, Logan reported, checking his tablet. Viktor Kravenov, Russian national, officially an art dealer. Unofficially, the head of the Shadow Consortium, Jack finished. Blade's boss. They watched as Viktor entered the cannery, his bodyguards scanning for threats. 20 minutes later, Blade arrived with his own security detail. Sam's voice came through their comms. She'd insisted on monitoring the surveillance feeds from the safe house. Dad, look at their body language. The guards are too tense, fingers too close to their weapons. This isn't a normal meeting. She was right. Years of combat experience had taught Jack to read the signs of impending violence, and every instinct was screaming that something was about to go wrong. Inside the cannery, Blade faced Viktor across a makeshift office, a briefcase full of cash between them. The merchandise has been moved safely. Viktor's accent was cultured, refined. There was a complication, Blade replied. A father with particular skills. But it's handled now. Viktor's eyes narrowed. You promised discretion, Mr. Shaw. Instead, you've brought attention to our operation. Perhaps it's time for new management. Funny, Blade smiled coldly. I was thinking the same thing. The violence erupted with stunning speed. Blade's men had been waiting for his signal, and Victor's bodyguards never had a chance. The Russian himself took 3 bullets to the chest before he could reach his weapon. Move in, Jack ordered, but they were already running. The firefight was intense and chaotic. Jack and Logan worked with practiced efficiency, years of training allowing them to anticipate each other's moves. They cleared the outer guards quickly, pushing toward the main building. Sam, talk to me, Jack called into his comm. Where's Blade? East side of the building, she reported, watching through the cameras. He's heading for the dock with the briefcase. There's a boat. Stop him. Victor's voice was weak, but urgent. The Russian lay dying, blood spreading across his expensive suit. The briefcase. Evidence. Everything. Logan secured the area, while Jack pursued Blade. He emerged onto the dock just as the speedboat's engine roared to life. It was never about the money, you know, Blade called over the engine's noise. This whole operation, it was about finding you, Jack. Making you remember. Remember what? Basra wasn't the whole story. Rodriguez knew things about what really happened during certain missions. Things that would interest a lot of people. Blade's smile was terrible. Ask yourself, why did Claire really die in that accident? The implications hit Jack like a physical blow, giving Blade the moment he needed. The speedboat surged away from the dock, disappearing into the gathering darkness. But he'd left something behind, a USB drive, deliberately placed where Jack would find it. And in the briefcase he'd dropped during his escape, they found not just money but documents, hard drives, ledgers. This is it, Logan said, examining the evidence. Account numbers, shipping routes, client lists. Everything needed to take down the Shadow Consortium. It's not over, Jack replied, thinking of Blade's words about Claire. He wanted us to find this. He's playing a longer game. Back at the safe house, Sam was waiting. She hugged her father tightly, then surprised Logan with an embrace as well. Thank you, she whispered, for helping him find me. Logan's tough exterior cracked slightly. Family takes care of family, kid. Even the family we choose. But as they celebrated this victory, Jack's mind was racing. Blade had escaped, but he'd left them a trail to follow. The question was, what would they find at the end of it? The mystery of Claire's death, the connection to his sealed days, the careful manipulation that had led them all to this point. Every answer seemed to reveal new questions. One thing was certain, the hunt wasn't over. It was evolving into something deeper, darker, and far more personal than any of them had imagined. As if reading his thoughts, Sam touched his arm. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Jack looked at his daughter. No longer just his little girl, but a survivor, a fighter, someone who had stared into darkness and emerged stronger. Together, he agreed, but silently, he promised himself that he would uncover the truth about Claire's death, about Rodriguez, about all of it. Blade was still out there, holding pieces of a puzzle Jack hadn't even known existed. And somehow, his daughter had been drawn into a web of revenge and secrets that stretched back years. The hunt would continue. But now, the hunters had become the hunted. The Coast Guard's radar data confirmed what Jack had suspected. Blade's speedboat had headed for a small private island 20 miles offshore. Satellite imagery showed a compound hidden among the trees, complete with a private dock and helipad. It's their fallback position, Logan explained, studying the tactical display. Every smart criminal organization has one. A place to regroup, destroy evidence, make new plans. Jack traced the island's perimeter on the map. No wonder they felt safe operating so close to the mainland. Any law enforcement investigation would need warrants, probable cause. Good thing we're not law enforcement. Logan grinned, checking his weapons. Back at the safe house, Sam and Toby sat on the deck, watching the waves. The past few days had left them both changed, but they were healing together. I used to be scared of everything, Toby admitted, hugging his knees. Thunder, the dark, being alone. But after what happened, he looked at Sam. You showed me how to be brave. Sam thought about her own fear during the kidnapping, how she'd channeled it into determination. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done anyway. Is that what your dad taught you? That, And how to pick handcuffs with a hairpin, Sam smiled. But mostly he taught me to never give up, no matter what. Inside, Jack and Logan made final preparations for the assault. They had a small window. Satellite imagery showed most of Blade's forces had been depleted in the dock's operation, but reinforcements would surely be coming. Remember, Jack told Logan, this isn't a capture mission. Blade knows too much, has too many connections. The only way this ends is... I know, brother. Logan checked his tactical vest one last time. Just like Basra. Before they left, Sam hugged her father tightly. Come back, she whispered. Both of you. Count on it, kiddo. They approached the island under cover of darkness, using a small fishing boat to avoid detection. The compound security was sophisticated but predictable, automated systems that could be bypassed with the right equipment. Just like old times, Logan muttered as they swam toward shore. You taking point, me watching your six? They made landfall on a rocky beach, quickly establishing a hidden observation post. Through night vision goggles, they counted 6 guards on patrol routes, with likely more inside the main building. Camera blind spot between the dock and the generator, Jack noted. We can. Gunfire erupted from their left flank. They'd been spotted. Go! Logan shouted, returning fire. I'll hold them here. Logan. That's an order, Chief. Find that bastard. Make him pay. Jack hesitated for a split second, then squeezed his friend's shoulder and moved out. Behind him, Logan's covering fire grew more intense, drawing attention away from Jack's advance. Back at the safe house, Sam paced anxiously. Every crackle of the radio made her jump, hoping for news. Toby watched her with concern. Tell me about him, the boy said suddenly. About your dad. What was he like before all this? Sam smiled, grateful for the distraction. He was the strongest person I know. Not just physically. He'd make me breakfast every morning, help me with art projects, teach me self-defense like it was a game. After Mom died, he could have shut down, become bitter. Instead, he poured all his love into protecting me, preparing me. Her voice trailed off as she realized something. He wasn't just preparing me for college or life. He was preparing me for something like this. He somehow knew. On the island, Jack moved like a ghost through the underbrush. The sound of Logan's firefight provided cover as he systematically eliminated perimeter guards. Each takedown was silent, efficient, the work of a man who had spent years perfecting the art of close-quarter combat. A burst of radio chatter caught his attention. Intruder detained at the beach. One man, heavily armed. Should we execute? Logan. Jack pushed down his worry, focusing on the mission. His friend was tough. He'd have to trust him to survive. The main building was a modernized plantation house, all steel and glass behind its historical facade. Jack used a maintenance access to infiltrate the ground floor, neutralizing 2 more guards with precise strikes to throat and temple. I was wondering when you'd show up. Blade's voice echoed through hidden speakers, calm and amused. You've lost Marcus, Jack called out, moving from cover to cover. Victor's dead. Your operation is exposed. You still don't understand, do you? This was never about the operation. It was about justice, redemption, by trafficking children, by exposing the truth. About Rodriguez, about what really happened in Basra, about Claire. Jack's blood ran cold. What about Claire? She was getting too close. She found something in your old mission files, something about what really happened the night Rodriguez died. Did you really think her car accident was random? Rage threatened to overwhelm Jack's tactical focus. He forced it down, channeling it into precise movement as he cleared rooms one by one. He found Blade in what had once been a ballroom, now converted into a high-tech command center. The former Delta Force operator stood calmly in the center, hands clasped behind his back. Welcome home, Jack. The fight that followed was brutal and intimate. 2 elite warriors with nothing left to lose. Blade was younger, faster, his technique flawless. But Jack had something stronger driving him. Love, rage, and the need to protect his daughter. They crashed through furniture, neither man holding back. Blade's knife slashed Jack's arm. Jack's elbow shattered Blade's nose. Years of training manifested in a deadly dance of strikes, blocks, and counters. Rodriguez was right about everything. Blade gasped through bloody teeth. The corruption, the cover-ups, the deals with criminals. We were never the good guys, Jack. We were just better at hiding it. You're wrong. Jack drove his knee into Blade's ribs. We protected people. Saved lives. Tell that to the villagers in Basra. Tell that to Claire. The mention of his wife's name gave Jack the opening he needed. His next combination was perfect. A strike to the throat, an arm lock, and a final, decisive twist. Blade slumped to the floor, dying but not quite dead. The evidence, he coughed. In the computers. About everything. The question is, can the world handle the truth? Can you? Those were his last words. Jack secured the scene, then rushed back to find Logan. His friend was alive but badly wounded, surrounded by the bodies of Blade's men. Did we win? Logan asked weakly. Yeah, brother. We won. The aftermath moved quickly. FBI teams swarmed the island, led by agents Jack and Logan had worked with in their SEAL days. Victor's organization crumbled as evidence was unveiled. Safe houses were raided, and victims were rescued. Sam proved invaluable during the investigation. Her detailed observations, combined with her artistic skills, helped authorities piece together the network structure. She worked with sketch artists to identify key players, mark locations on maps, and provided crucial testimony. Your daughter's quite remarkable, the lead FBI agent told Jack. She didn't just survive. She gathered intelligence the whole time. Like father, like daughter. The biggest break came when Sam recognized symbols in the compound's computer files, the same ones she'd seen tattooed on gang members. Her information helped authorities identify dozens of previously unknown trafficking routes. 2 weeks later, Jack and Sam stood on their back porch, watching another sunset. Logan was recovering in the hospital, already complaining about the food. Toby had been reunited with his family, though he still called Sam every day. Dad. Sam's voice was thoughtful. What Blade said about Mom? I don't know if it was true, Jack admitted. The evidence he left behind, some of it's still classified. Some might never come to light. He took her hand. But I promise you this, no more secrets between us. No more pretending the world is safer than it is. I wouldn't want it to be, Sam replied, because then I wouldn't know how strong I could be. How strong we are together. They held each other as the sun sank below the horizon. They had survived, grown stronger, and brought down a criminal empire in the process. But more importantly, they had done it together. The nightmare was over. The future, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, stretched out before them like the endless ocean. And this time, they were ready for whatever it might bring. 3 months after the island showdown, Jack sat in a comfortable office, watching autumn leaves dance past the window. Dr. Sarah Chun, their family therapist, sat across from him, her presence calm and steady. How are the nightmares? She asked. Better, Jack admitted. Sam's too, I think. She's sleeping through the night now. And Toby still has rough patches, but he's opening up more, especially with Sam. The three of them had been attending both individual and group therapy sessions, learning to process their trauma in healthy ways. Jack had initially resisted. SEALs weren't supposed to need help. But watching Sam embrace the healing process had changed his mind. You can't punch your way through everything, Dad, she told him with a slight smile. Sometimes you have to talk it out. Later that week, they visited Ellie and her family. The reunion was emotional. Tears and hugs and profound gratitude. I don't know how to thank you, Ellie's mother whispered, holding Jack's hands. You didn't just save our daughter. You saved our whole family. Ellie herself had changed. There was a new strength in her bearing, a determination in her eyes. She'd started a support group for trafficking survivors, using her experience to help others heal. Sam's sketches helped the FBI identify 3 more hideouts, she told Jack proudly. We're making a difference, bringing more people home. In the hospital, Logan was driving the nurses crazy with his restlessness. His wounds were healing well, but he hated being confined to bed. Remember that fishing trip we talked about? He asked as Jack visited. I'm thinking somewhere quiet. Alaska maybe, where the fish are big and the memories are small. Retirement? Jack raised an eyebrow. The great Logan Matthews, hanging up his tactical gear? Hey, I took enough bullets for one lifetime. Logan's expression grew serious. Besides, someone needs to keep you from becoming a hermit. Can't let Sam have all the fun, pulling you out of your shell. At home, Sam had transformed their garage into an art studio. The centerpiece was a massive mural she was creating for the community center, a powerful piece showing shadowy figures emerging into light, breaking free from chains that became butterflies. It's for everyone who's still out there, she explained as she worked, to show them there's hope, that someone's fighting for them. She dipped her brush in deep blue paint. And for the ones who helped save me, you, Logan, Ellie, even Mom, in a way. Her strength was with me the whole time. Jack watched his daughter work, seeing Claire's artistic spirit living on through her. But Sam had developed her own unique style, one that spoke of darkness overcome, of resilience and hope prevailing against all odds. The biggest surprise came 2 months later, when Toby's parents visited. The boy had been struggling to readjust to his old life, plagued by nightmares and anxiety. "He talks about you both constantly," his father said. "How you protected him, gave him strength. We've never seen him so alive despite everything. We're moving to the coast," his mother added. "A fresh start. But Toby, he needs more than just a new location. He needs family who understand what he's been through." The conversation that followed changed all their lives. Joint custody was arranged. Toby would split his time between both families, finding healing in the blend of old and new, of blood ties and bonds forged in fire. "Does this mean I get a brother?" Sam asked that night, her eyes twinkling. "It means we all get a second chance," Jack replied. The town's reaction to the whole saga evolved from fear to pride. The story made national news. A small coastal community that helped bring down an international trafficking ring. Local businesses put up thank you signs, and the diner named a sandwich after Jack, extra meat, no nonsense. Even Deputy Clark found redemption. After a stint in prison for his role in the conspiracy, he emerged changed. His public apology to Jack was sincere and humble. "I forgot what it meant to protect and serve," he said, standing on Jack's porch. "Watching you risk everything to save not just your daughter, but all those other lives. It reminded me why I became a cop in the first place." The syndicate's collapse had far-reaching consequences. The evidence Sam helped compile led to arrests across 3 continents. Shell companies were exposed, corrupt officials were ousted, and dozens of trafficking victims were rescued and returned to their families. FBI analysts called it the biggest blow to organized crime in a decade. But for Jack, the most important victory was watching his daughter heal and grow stronger. Sam's first gallery exhibition opened on a crisp autumn evening. The community center was packed, not just with locals, but with survivors and their families, law enforcement officials, and even some of Jack's old SEAL teammates. Her artwork told their story without words. The darkness of captivity, the light of rescue, the bonds of family, both blood and chosen. The centerpiece was a triptych. The first panel showing a warrior emerging from shadows, the second depicting hands breaking free from chains, and the third revealing a peaceful scene of family and healing. "Ladies and gentlemen," the gallery owner announced, "I present Shadows and Light by Samantha Riker." The applause was thunderous. Jack stood at the back, watching his daughter shine. Logan hobbled up beside him, finally free of his crutches. "You did good, brother," he said softly. "Claire would be proud." "We did good," Jack corrected him. "All of us." Later that night, Jack and Sam sat on their back porch, a tradition that had taken on new meaning since their ordeal. Toby was inside, helping Logan attempt to cook dinner, with dubious results, judging by the smoke alarm's occasional protests. "I found something in Mom's old papers," Sam said quietly. "A letter she wrote about her investigation into Rodriguez and Basra." Jack tensed slightly. "Sam, it's okay, Dad. I didn't read it." She took his hand. "Some mysteries can stay mysteries. What matters is here and now. What we build from all this." The sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, orange and pink and purple, nature's own artwork. Jack thought about his journey from SEAL to father, from warrior to protector, from broken to healed. His daughter was right. The past had its shadows, its unanswered questions. But the future was full of light. "Hey," Logan called from inside. "Either come help with dinner or accept that we're ordering pizza." Sam laughed, a sound that meant more to Jack than any medal or commendation he'd ever received. "Coming," she called back. But she lingered a moment longer on the porch, leaning against her father's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For teaching me to be strong. For showing me that family is about more than blood. For never giving up." Jack kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of paint and sunshine that was uniquely Sam. Inside, Toby was laughing at something Logan said. The smoke alarm had finally stopped its protest. The evening was settling into peaceful normalcy, the kind of normalcy they'd all fought so hard to achieve. "Ready?" Sam asked, standing up. Jack took one last look at the sunset, at the world that had tried to break them but had only made them stronger. "Ready," he replied. Together, they walked into their home, leaving the shadows behind and stepping into the light they'd earned, one brave choice at a time. The end wasn't really an end at all, but a beginning, a new chapter in a story of family, courage, and the unbreakable bonds forged in darkness but destined to shine in the light. And somewhere, Jack knew, Claire was smiling. But this story raises an interesting question. How far would you go to protect your family? Would you, like Jack Riker, be willing to resurrect the warrior within, to become what others fear in order to save what you love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, we're bringing you another extraordinary tale of elite warriors who refused to back down when everything was on the line. Hit that like button if you believe in the power of a father's love, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. Because in this community, we understand that the strongest warriors aren't just the ones who can fight, but the ones who know what they're fighting for. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous predator isn't the one hunting in the shadows, but the one protecting what they love.